Good morning, Bomele Bondate. I am pleased to have this opportunity to welcome you all to this Lesotho Renewable Energy and Energy Access Project, mini-grids markets sounding events whose main objective is to gain and gather appetite from all stakeholders present on the interest of developing mini-grids in Lesotho from potential developers. I have been informed that this is a hybrid event which has attracted participants from all over the world, comprising of financiers, developers, private sector, government officials, development partners, and commercial banks. Mini-grids not only accord electricity services to hard-to-reach areas, but it also allows for climate change mitigation and adaptation interventions to take place. Energy access is at the top of global political agenda, and Lesotho, through her 10-year energy policy, which covers the period from 2015 to 2025, vision aims at ensuring that energy is universally accessible and affordable in a sustainable manner with minimum negative impacts on the environment. Currently, the country's electrification rate is around 51%, and the majority of connections, around 70%, are in the urban and peri-urban areas, while rural communities having access to electricity represents only 10%. Rural communities rely heavily on the use of biomass in all its forms, for meeting basic needs such as cooking, space heating, and lighting. The effects of this practice on human beings is well documented. To increase the rate of electrification, the government of Lesotho approved an electrification master plan in 2018 with the support of the European Union under the Energy Reform Program. The plan proposes two-pronged strategy advocating for grid extension by the national utility and construction of mini-grids in those areas far away from the current electricity infrastructure, spearheaded by the yet-to-be established Rural Energy Agency once the new energy bill is enacted. This was due to the realization by the government that resources required, estimated at 3 billion maluti, are no longer available, and hence a need to invite private sector engagement in the provision of electricity. The workshop we are having today will, amongst others, provide valuable information the country has done in trying to encourage private sector or developers participation for their meaningful participation. The event today further marks a vital milestone towards ensuring that every Lesotho is connected to electricity in an affordable and sustainable manner using renewable energy sources the country is endowed with. This is in line with the United Nations Secretary General initiative adopted by all nations to achieve access of electricity by 2030, as contained in the Sustainable Development Goals number 7. The government of Lesotho, under the auspices of the Minister of Natural Resources, is pleased to announce this exceptional opportunity for private sector engagement in the electrification of Lesotho's household through mini-grids, which will be done using the public-private partnership approach, details of which will be elaborated on during the presentations sessions. As we begin this journey, challenges for the full deployment of mini-grids using renewable energy relating to affordability remain paramount. This, on the contrary, is against the recent cost reduction of photovoltaics equipment and advanced technologies, which in principle should make off-grid electrification an attractive and cost-effective option for increasing electricity access to many communities in the Lesotho. I would like to imagine that efforts will be made to encourage use of electricity for income-generating activities to reduce poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to briefly mention that today's event is implemented under component 2B of our ongoing project LRIP, which focuses at rural electrification by mini-grids under public-private partnership. This component is financed by the World Bank and will attract private sector financing through creating an enabling environment for private sector investment in this notable national agenda. A market-based approach will be employed whereby the private sector develops mini-grids to deliver electricity services on a build, own, operate basis, which financial support offered through a single funding window, the minimum subsidy tender, as it refers to. The Department of Energy will be responsible for providing payments to developers towards capital expenditures through a clear and transparent process. Again, details of what the government envisages will be deliberated at length during the course of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I would like to take this opportunity and thank the World Bank and other development partners for their unwavering support offered to our government through the ministry. It is my desire, hope that deliberations in this event will gather more support, interest, and appetite from the developers to assist Lesotho in realizing this dream of ensuring that by 2030, all of Lesotho have access to electricity regardless of where they live or reside at an affordable prices. It is a dream that is very close to my heart as well, and I promise to avail all resources at the minister's disposal to have it realized. We are beginning to build the Lesotho we want from the energy provision perspective, and I'm excited to be part of this initiative. With these few remarks, I declare this workshop opened and wish you a fruitful deliberation. Thank you very much for your good listening.
Yes. The side has been. Thank you very much, that DPS. I think we have all heard what you have said, and I think you have set the scene. Allow me to. There was a program which was actually projected here. Allow me to slightly twist it a bit. Instead of having that audio, we will actually have a presentation by the project coordinator, Mayor Jobo. She will basically be giving us briefly what the project entails, and also, as she does her presentation, she should be able to tell us why we are here. I know that in the that the PS speech. That was actually mentioned, but specifically, you come here to give us a brief about the project, and then tell us why we are here. And then thereafter, we'll actually have Ndate Kojo. I think you will have actually managed to have him. I think he's participating virtually, if I understood well. Oh, he's here. Oh, he's here. Then Ndate Kojo will actually take over, and then we'll proceed. Mema Tapelo, you're on the floor.
Thank you, Ndate Director. Bomele Ndate, today's event, like Ndate PS had mentioned, is about getting to engage regarding the energy provision to every Mosotho. The project that we are implementing, as mentioned in the previous deliberations, is called Lesotho Renewable Energy and Energy Access Project. The development objective of the project is to increase electricity access to rural and peri-urban areas of Lesotho. The project is funded by the World Bank and through the Climate Investment Fund. The overall budget of the project is $52.9 million, which comprises 40 million of IDA, and the 10.9 is from the Scaling Up Renewable Energy Program. We are currently three components. The first component is on grid extension to peri-urban and urban areas of Lesotho, which initially was targeted at electrifying the industrial zones. Currently, the project is running at Habelo, where we are providing electricity to the Belo factory shells. The second component of the project, which brings us here today, is on rural electrification by mini grids, which has two sub-components. The first component is to rehabilitate the existing Simongong mini grid. The second component, which brings us here today, is on mini grid deployment through the public-private partnership. And I'm glad to have such a large number of physical participation as well as online participation. I believe in here there are over 100 participants physically, and online we have additional 100 participants. I hope our participation here signifies Basotho's strive towards achieving this national agenda of increasing access. Like Ndate Director had mentioned, today's event really speaks to getting private sector involved in the energy space. And the objective of today's workshop is to provide an opportunity for structured dialogue between yourselves, the financiers, the available development partners in the energy space towards Lesotho, to ensure a transparent public-private partnership towards achieving the national goal of increasing access. What the government of Lesotho intends to do is to leave no one behind in providing energy access to every Mosotho. And in light of this, we expect that through your financing, among other things, and your technical know-how, we can expand this development goal of increasing energy access. And in particular, our country's electrification is relatively low compared to the other players. Mini grids deployment, we anticipate that we will increase access to the rural areas where grid extension seems to be more of a high cost. So ours today is to really have this deliberation to speak to how we can ensure that there is energy access to every Mosotho. So from today's event, we have the following expected outcomes. The expected outcomes of today's event is to provide details about the tendering process that the LRI project will enter into and provide suitable subsidy mechanisms that will avail the mini-grid development for ensuring energy access. Our goal for today is to prepare project developers who are considering to bid for this project to guide as to how the tendering process will proceed towards achieving this goal of the government. Having said that, Bomele Bontate, I wish to hand over back to the director who will introduce Ndate Kojo, who will moderate today's event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keke. I think we are now clear as to why we are here. And today's session will actually be moderated by Ndate Masime Kojo. I hope I've pronounced it. Ndate Masime Kojo. Ndate Kojo, you are on the floor. I think when you come here, you will basically say a few words as to who you are. I think people will definitely want to know who you are. And then what is it that you are bringing to us so that at least they can have that confidence that you are the right person to moderate this session. That the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Director of Energy. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Permanent Secretary, for joining us and be with us this morning. And thank you, KK, for your wonderful work. We really appreciate your devotion. I know you're doing it for your country, but you're doing it with passion, and we really appreciate it. I'm Dr. Kojo Afidenyo, and I'm glad to be here because first, I'm African, I'm from Togo, and I'm a mechanical engineer by background. Then moved to the US in 2004 for the second master's and joined Shell Oil Company as a production engineer. After 4 years with Shell, I left Shell to join another US Global Power IPP, Conto Global. They built the innovative project, the Kivu project in Rwanda, where they use the methane underneath the lake to generate power. Actually, I was the construction manager for that project. And then I left Conto Global to join the African Renewable Energy Fund, managed by Barclay Energy. And later on, join a multilateral called the PIGE, the Private Infrastructure Development Group, for which I was the regional director, West and Central Africa. I also hold a doctoral degree in business administration. So my whole career took me to a point that, I became a project finance expert, and I've been involved in several transaction advisory across the continent. I'm not gonna move forward without presenting my team, because it's a teamwork. Mututu Benya, who is a policy expert, more than 42 years experience across the continent. Joannis, who is a renewable energy expert, more than 12 years developing solar home systems, mini grids, solar productive usage project across the sub-Saharan Africa. Then James Mushuri, who is our demand assessment expert, engineer by background, but being involved in several renewable energy projects across the continent, including mini grids project. Mike, who is also a renewable energy expert, engineer by background also. I mean, I like when I see engineers come in to do this kind of project, because when you leave it only to financiers, the financial modeling doesn't mean anything. So I love when I see engineering being involved into project from the beginning. Then the next person in the team is Joyce, who is our environmental specialist. Joyce is based in Ghana, be involved in developing renewable energy projects in Ghana. Then we have Natasha, who is our social specialist. And I think I'm leaving one behind. Fiona, who is our local project coordinator. Thank you, Fiona. Again, we will not be here if it wasn't with you. And the last person I will mention as a key expert in for the project is Stafford Via, based in the US, who is our international project coordinator. And let me also mention that, I mean, these are the core, I mean, the people I just named are the core team, but we backed up with a very strong team. I mean, I would like to show them, but unfortunately, we don't have the PowerPoint. I will need the presentation, otherwise I have my laptop. Okay, it's back, yes. So why are we here today? We want to have a structured dialogue with and the public sectors in order to deliver the objective set by the Lesotho Renewable Energy and Energy Assets Program, which is to give access to electricity to rural community. And this cannot be achieved by one side. We need a structured dialogue, understand what the requirements are and the expectations are from the government, but what also will be the expectation from the private sector, including also the public sector. When I mean public sector, I mean multilaterals, donors. What will be their, I mean, their role to play so that we can achieve the reason why we're here. So the expected outcome, again, we want to provide you details about the tendering process that will happen on the 10 mini grid site. Okay. Okay, thank you. And then to prepare project developers considering to participate to the tender about what the expectation, what the requirement will be for the tender process. So the tendering process will be around 10 sites, and these sites have been selected based on specific criteria. First, you have the distance from the grid, and each site is a minimum 10 kilometers away from the main grid. Then you also have it needs to be outside of the grid extension plan for the next 5 years. They were also selected based on the topography and the area, the topography and the geography of the area. They're selected based on the need, the energy need, and what source is currently used. They're selected based on the willingness. So the willingness to pay of the local population. And it also selected about their willingness to have the mini grid project in their area. So we're showing the map. I mean, on the map, we're showing several grids. Several villages. So how did we identify those areas? So we kind of estimate. How many households are around susceptible to be connected to the grid. We look at the anchor clients, who are the private companies. So the people who need electricity for productive usage, and then also the public customers in the area. Those are the three types of customers you'll see in that area. So the point on the map kind of identify the concentration of the community, the household around each specific site. That's another picture. So on the projects we've been talking about, the 10, there's already a feasibility study that has been done on 10 sites. The feasibility has been done, and one of the work we're doing as Greenmax and Inensius is to review these feasibility studies and to ensure their accuracy, the level of accuracy, so that you as a project, mini grid developers, you have access to accurate data before the bidding process. So basically, you have, among these 10 villages, you have, we have identified what will be the peak capacity of because for the beginning, we are considering a system with 3 components. The first component will be the solar PV plant. The second one will be a genset, a backup generator, but we also have a battery, storage battery. So we have classified them, and the study has identified what will be the maximum peak capacity of each mini grid, what the requirement will be in terms of battery storage, and what the requirement will be in terms of backup generator. So basically, we are showing on this slide the customer profile of each community. So for example, in blue, you have the household. In public structures. So we have done the same thing for all the 10 mini grid sites. So you have, when you're bidding, you have information about how many households you have in the area, how many private SMEs you have, and how many public customers you have in the area. So that will help you project the curve, the curve of the demand. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the cost recovery mechanism. When you're talking about mini grids, you have to do the balance between 2 things. The first one is the affordability of the cost, because you are providing electricity to rural community. People basically don't have, who don't have the same level of revenue compared to people living in the cities. But you also have to take into account the fact that electricity is cost reflective. So you need to find the right balance between the affordability of the tariff you're setting, but also between the bankability of the project. Because if the private sector cannot recover his money, I don't think they will be coming in. But if it's also too expensive, then I think we will be hurting the community instead of helping them out. So we need to find the right balance. for mini grid projects so far in Africa, we still need subsidy mechanism. I mean, it can come in the form of an upfront capex. It can come in the form of an RBF, but again, for each mini grid program, you have to assess it and decide which mechanism will work best for this specific situation. Next. So in Lesotho, we are thinking about two things: compensate the developer through the average cost of capital, meaning that there will be a subsidy component that will reduce the cost of capital in order to, to allow the developer at a preset tariff to achieve an intended return. And then we also need to, while doing that, we need to link it to the customer willingness and ability to pay. And that's what I mentioned in my previous slide, saying that you have to find the right balance between these two. Okay, this slide presents the different type of cost recovery mechanism. So the deputy director, I think, or the director general mentioning one of them, is the minimum subsidy tender. What it means is at a set tariff, the developer will come and request, the subsidy he thinks, the minimum subsidy he thinks he needs to achieve such tariff. So, in that case, the evaluation of the tender is based on, not only, we need to make sure that you're proposing a viable technical solutions, but we need to make sure that you are requesting the minimum subsidy to achieve your bankability, to achieve your IRR. Again, when we talk about cost recovery mechanism, we have seen across the continent several ways of setting the tariff for mini grids. For example, in Ghana, you have what they call the universal uniform tariff, because in Ghana, they assume that every Ghanaian should pay the same price for electricity. So when you come in, then as a mini grid developer, they don't, the government doesn't look at it from the cost perspectives, but look at it from the fact that for the sake of equality, all Ghanaians need to pay the same price of tariff. Now, in other countries, the tariff is set, but is cost reflective. When I say cost reflective, it doesn't mean necessarily that the final customer is paying the real price of the electricity. What it means is when you look at the project economics, you need to take into account all the real costs and then find the right mechanism, whether it's a fiscal incentive, whether it's a subsidy, whether it's an RBF, to come to the final tariff. So now I'm going to talk about the PPP framework. First, why do governments decide to do PPP? Because first, they want to tap into the expertise of the private sector. They want the private sector to bring the expertise maybe they might not have in country. The second reason, it allows a better risk management and sharing, because the minute the government is doing it then all the risk becomes the government risk. But when the minute you decide to go to a PPP, there is a risk management, a risk sharing scheme you put in place where the government control what they can control best, and the private sector also take into account what they can control best. And then one of another reason, the speed of implementation. it has been demonstrated that projects are implemented faster when they are, led by the private sector. So for the sake of speed implementation, government decided to go for a public-private partnership. The long-term operation and maintenance. Again, usually the private sector comes not only with the money, but with the expertise they have developed somewhere else. So it allows them to perform the long-term O&M on the project, which is necessary because we've seen several projects in Sub-Saharan Africa developed by government, but the project didn't go far because of lack of operation and maintenance. Transfer of technology and know-how. Again, I mentioned the private sector comes with what they have, as a technology and also their expertise. So when they come into country developing infrastructure project in general, then they pass through their know-how, their expertise to the local population, allow the country to take over and move forward the next time. Better value for money for the public sector. Yes, again, when we talk about infrastructure projects, they are very capital consuming. And we know that government are more focused on things, public related things like health, education, that doesn't bring money to the plate. So they prefer deferring then the high infrastructure capital cost to the private sector when they enter into PPP agreements. So mini grid PPP models. So we have seen across the continent 3 types of models of PPPs. The first one is the O&M contract. What happened? The government built the project and gives the project to a private sector to operate and maintain the project. And the government, the private sector is paid through the money, they recover the revenue of the project. The other one is the concession, where the project is owned by the private sector, by the public sector, by the government. But usually when the private sector is coming in, there are some operational costs, upfront operational costs that are the government require the private sector to pay. And then again, by operating the project during the concession time, they recover their money through the project revenue. And the third one is the build, own, operate, which most of the government are going toward more and more today. So the private sector will come, design the project, finance it, build, and operate the project during the whole, they will do it under a license, usually a license given by the government. So lesson learned from mini-grid PPPs. There are several lessons that have been learned from previous mini-grid PPPs. The first one is the financial assistance. Like I mentioned it again, mini-grids today are not, without subsidy, are not financially viable. If you want to compare the mini-grid tariff to the grid-connected tariff, one needs first to take into account the fact that when you're talking about grid-connected projects, the economy of scale, because you're talking about building big power plants compared to mini-grid power plants, will reduce the cost of generation. Not only that, most of the transmission line and distribution line in Sub-Saharan Africa has been heavily subsidized, which what you don't see in the case of a mini-grid. So if you ask someone then to develop a mini-grid project where it's not having, it doesn't have the same economy of scale as a big power plant, then he's also paying for the transmission and distribution, then it's clear that. And the third factor is mini-grids are developed in rural area where people don't have the same revenue profile. So if you combine these three, it's clear that financial assistance is needed to get to make mini-grid project bankable. Community engagement. the second lesson also learned is you cannot go build mini grid in community without engaging them, understanding their needs, and design the mini grid to meet such needs. So the community engagement is critical for the success of mini grid project. Workable regulations. Policy and regulations are also key in delivering successful mini grids. For example, in some countries, it takes 6 months to get a license to build a single mini grid. So even if the person has, for example, 10 mini grid to build, if it's going to take 5 years to get a license to build 10 mini grids, there's no way they can make it work. So being able to put in place a workup regulations is key for the success of mini grid project. Local and international partnership, that's also quite critical for 2 reasons. The first one is people, private sector, international cabin come with the know-how and also come with the capability to raise finance. But they cannot, you cannot run mini grid. When you look at the mini grid cost itself, you cannot run mini grid by bringing, for example, expert people to work. So you need to train local people to take over and operate and maintain these mini grids. Not only that, even from a financing aspect, there is the aspect of local currency. Because if you finance mini grids, 100% with hard currency, while people are paying in local currency, then you will find yourself in currency convertibility issues that can ruin your project. So the international and local partnership is key to deliver mini grid project. And the last one, innovative technology. And again, when people started developing mini grid projects, they will just build the power plant, connect people, and expect them to pay. But we've seen more and more smart grids where the generation is tied up to the demand. When the load, the production load differ depending on the demand curve. And we've also seen the use of digital technology to improve the effectiveness of mini grids businesses. And I think a colleague from Odyssey will take us a bit through the use of digital technology to improve mini grid access. So what are the government of Lesotho's objectives? So they want to design a program where they would incentivize the private sector to come and develop develop the mini grid project into the country. And the incentive can be through fiscal incentive or through subsidy or a combination of both. So these are work we're still conducting to ensure that we propose to the government the best way forward based on not only what we will assess, but also based on your feedback. Because again, one of the reasons why we're having this meeting is to get your feedback, get your input so that we make something that works for everybody. So seek verification and recommendation for IPP operating conditions. That's what we're working on as a consultant to make sure that all the criteria, all the requirements to operate IPP will be met for the selected private sector developer. So again, we mentioned that, when we were talking about the PPP, lesson learned that regulations are key in delivering PPP projects. So the government is working in streamlining the process, the approval process, so that they will expedite the process. Expedite doesn't mean cut corners. No, they will make sure that things are done the right way, but they will put whatever is at their disposal to expedite it to deliver things on time. And again, they're willing to assist, they're willing to provide with all the support you need to successfully deliver the mini-grid project. And the last one, they will ensure that you comply with local and international law, especially when we're talking about social and environmental impact perspectives. Mini-grid regulations. In Lesotho, the mini-grid regulations is done in two ways. So related to mini-grids having capacity less than 100 watt peak, 100 kilowatt peak, and mini-grid between 100 kilowatt peak and 1 megawatt peak. So if you have a grid, you want to build a mini-grid, which capacity is less than 100 kilowatt peak, what you need to do is you need to apply for a tariff with a recovery mechanism. So the tariff will be, I mean, you have a fixed tariff, but with a recovery mechanism that will help you to recover your cost. But if you go in above the 100 kilowatt peak, then that will be an open book discussion negotiation. So your financial model, all the elements you use it to set your tariff should be discussed, so that together you decide what the tariff should be, and if there is any help you need to achieve that tariff, you can talk about it. So the first one is more about a set tariff, and you negotiate maybe the recovery mechanism. But the second one, since now you're going bigger, then they want to, from an open book perspective, for example, look at your financial model to decide if the tariff you propose it is fair. Okay, the procurement process in Lesotho. I think Lesotho, especially for the mini-grid program, Lesotho is following the World Bank procurement process, which is, I think, is classic. So you have the pre-qualification, what the World Bank called the initial selection phase. Then you have the request for proposal, where you go for the real tender. Then the evaluation is done, and the contracting is also done. So it will be four steps. The initial selection does the pre-qualification, the RFP, the assessment of all the tenders, and the contracting. I think, again, that's the process I just described. That's there. So we have a long slide for environmental and social, but what I want to emphasize on is when we developing mini-grid projects or infrastructure projects, we're doing it for the good of our people. We can't do it by hurting, harming the environment or hurting people we're doing the project for. So we said, the government is willing to expedite the process, but we need to make sure that environmental and social are safeguarded throughout the whole process. We don't think it will be probably a full process, because again, when you want to do a full Asia, it takes a long time and it takes a lot of money. But a process will be put in place to ensure that the environmental and social requirements, whether it's local or international, are met. So the potential bidders need to understand that they will also be assessed based on how they're planning to tackle environmental and social issues. So again, this chart is showing the normal Asia process, but the other side, for example, this is a reduced process that has been used for PPPs, mini grid PPPs somewhere else, that can be I mean, we will probably suggest to the government of Lesotho to use to reduce the environmental and social impact time and to expedite things. I think now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Susan from Odyssey to talk to you about the digital transformation in mini grids.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's really a great pleasure to be with you all today and to see what incredible enthusiasm there is in this room for the program. My name is Susan Smith. I am from Odyssey Energy Solutions. I'm based in South Africa. Very happy to be here this morning. We are a technology company that is 100% focused on distributed renewable energy, helping distributed renewable energy companies plan, finance, build, and operate their assets. And we also support governments and donors who are rolling out electrification programs, mini grid programs, solar home system programs, using technology to speed things up and build integrity into the process. So this morning, I'm here to spend a few minutes talking to you about the ways that digital technologies have been used to support and help these types of programs, both from the perspective of developers and the perspective of program administrators who have a responsibility, of course, to build trust, manage funds in a responsible manner, and so forth. So perhaps I'll start by saying there's a reason why the use of these digital technologies is important for mini grid programs and other distributed renewable energy programs. And that's because unlike other types of energy interventions, there are so many different companies participating, using so many different types of systems. There are potentially millions of data points that are extremely difficult to clean and standardize and gather into one place so that everyone has a clear picture of exactly what's happening at any given moment in time. It's also important, I would say, in a few different ways. When you have a centralized digital place to view and manage everything that's happening in these programs, it builds trust in the process, integrity and transparency around the process. It can reduce errors. It can also allow administrators to use the data that they're gathering throughout the program for really great analytics, to learn more about how the energy is being used, how if there are roadblocks to project implementation, where developers might be getting hung up and therefore need further support, and so forth. And finally, it speeds up the process. So importantly, you all get paid faster, a very important component. So I would say if we can go back a couple of slides. Yeah, so the first slide here I was showing, maybe back one more, is just an illustration of how a traditional approach to these types of programs will involve a very manual process. Administrators, there may be 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 different people speaking to developers on different email channels. Everyone may have their own Excel-based tracker. It's time consuming, it's very manual, and it's very prone to error in those ways. As I mentioned, if they're all being pulled into one place, it's much easier for communications to be audited and viewed centrally. It's possible to see all steps of the program and the status of the applicants throughout. So for that reason, it can help build trust and integrity in the process. One of the core pieces of technology that allows this to happen is the ability of technological platforms to pull in data through the cloud. So, for example, all the smart meters that are being deployed on these mini grid sites have a functionality where you can pull data from them through API and view them on platforms. That allows a whole range of program management options to become available. This slide is showing you kind of across the bottom all the different data sources, or an illustrative example of different data sources that can be pulled in through the cloud to the platform. You can have smart meters, inverters, solar home systems devices, field surveys for impact studies, GIS information for geospatial planning, and so forth. Then all of that comes in, gets standardized, cleaned, and then used in different aspects of the program. Here we're showing that you can actually use digital platforms, if desired, for every single stage of the process, from submission and review of applications to the point in time when companies who are selected and who are building out these sites and systems are submitting their claims for payment, through verification of household connections, and down into payout management, where you have a nice centralized ledger of how many funds have been dispersed to whom and when. Next slide, please. So this is one example of where you really can see a great benefit to developers, companies, and also program administrators. And this is the remote claims management program. A lot of these mini grid programs, other similar programs for electrification use results-based financing. And while you've been approved for a great CapEx grant, you may not get paid all of it until you can prove that you've connected 200 households, 400 households, however the program is designed. Now, the traditional way to prove that you've done that is someone has to go out to the site, go house to house, or make phone calls. If they've got the wrong phone number, it can take a really long time to go through those hundreds and hundreds of connections, and meaning months and months before you're able to get verified, paid for your claim. Now, using these digital technologies, as soon as you connect a household and they have that smart meter, a digital platform can, maybe stay in that previous slide. A digital platform can communicate with that smart meter, and you can just see instantly if it is a live connection. The system will automatically verify. It's kind of hard to see, but there's sort of a verified check mark on the side. So a program administrator can review and instantly see, yes, this developer has connected X number of households, they can be paid. And we've seen in other parts of the continent, the time from commissioning to payout reducing from something like 4 or 5 months to a couple of weeks. And that makes a big difference in your bottom line. Moving on, another great example of what you can do when you have all of the data coming in is very important kind of analytics on the progress of the program. So this would be more for the government and program administrator side, but because they're collecting all of the payouts information, all of the milestone and project status information, they'll be able to see very clearly how much have I deployed in funds, how many connections do I have, how much has been dispersed to each of these companies, and where are they in their progress in building out these sites, and have a really clear picture for reporting their successes, identifying where there's blockages, and so forth. Moving on, maybe one more. And then a final area where these digital technologies are really important is in the time period after the commissioning and building out of the site. A lot of the programs will want to verify that the sites that have been built out are providing the quality of power that is required, that the system uptime is what has been agreed. There may be different levels of performance and service that are required by the program that the program administrators may want to monitor. So it may be that they would, as part of the subsidy or grant agreement with you, say, listen, we need to be able to communicate and monitor your system for 3 months, 6 months, whatever the case may be after commissioning, so that we can check all of that. And here you're able to see on the bottom sort of a view of monitoring a single site, being able to see the status. Is it live? Are the different parameters in line with what they are meant to be? pulling data at really regular intervals from inverters or other system components. And then on the right is more of a portfolio view, a dashboard showing across X number of sites, how many are online at the moment, how many are in an error status, how much power has been produced today, other metrics that they may want to track to understand the system quality that's being provided to the household and make sure everybody's in alignment and in agreement that all of those parameters have been met over the agreed period of time. So that was a really quick run through of the different ways that these digital technologies and platforms can support the rollout of the programs, speed things up, and build trust in the process. Thank you for the time.
Thanks, Susan. We will now be having a question and answer session. So if you have any questions that you would like addressed, kindly share them with us. And our online participants and experts, as well as the experts that are here, will help to answer those questions. Okay, I see one hand at the back.
Okay. My name is Lef Michaelepo. I am a PhD student at Rochester Institute of Technology. I research energy access. I have a couple of questions for Mr. Is it Jolo or something? Yeah. Anyway, excuse me. Yeah. You mentioned that one of the criteria you used in selecting the sites was willingness to pay. I am really curious as to how you measure that, because that is a really, really difficult thing to measure and actually quantify. The second question I have is, why does it seem like the insistence is only on mini grids? Because I feel like some of the sites might be more suitable for solar home systems based on the demand that the prospective customers probably have. Those are my two questions.
Thank you. I think we can take two more questions and then they can all be answered at once.
Yeah, thank you. I have a few questions. The last one, our honorable member has alluded to it. And the first request, just a comment, is to Dr. Kojo, excuse me if I haven't voiced it up properly. One, would you be so kind to afford us have, sorry, to afford us have your presentation? Because there is a lot in what you have presented technically. And at this point in time, very short. Here in Lesotho, it looks as if the off-thumb rule was 5 kilometers. There's a big reason behind that. We don't need to debate it right now, but please note that and then you can attend to it. The last item is, which we have mentioned, is the 59.9 USD. Yeah. Is there a time frame when we should have accessed and consumed the fund? Also, how do we access it? And what type of fund is this? Is it the one whereby it is a loan we have to repay, or it's for a Christmas present?
Thank you. One last question, please. Does anyone have one last question? Okay.
Okay, I would just like to ask you with regard to the subsidy section. We know that here in Lesotho, the tariff set for mini grids still differ a lot to that one set for grid connected people. So how, if we were involved in the private sector in this, whom are the people who are expecting the return on their investment? How is it planned, like, to deal with this problem of imbalance between the tariffs of mini grids and that one set by our utility? Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can proceed to answer these questions and then get more questions from the audience.
Thank you for the willingness to pay question. I'll defer it around to my demand assessment experts. But when you mention the solar home systems, again, what we're talking about here today is not set in stone. For example, you have those 10 villages, but you as a developer, you can go and say, you know what, instead of building a single mini grid, I want 2 or 4 microgrids around based on the configuration. And again, there are some people, it doesn't make any sense for me going to them with a mini grid. Then it will be a combination for me of a mini grid or microgrid plus solar home system based on what the need is. But I think ultimately that will be a decision that will be made by the private sector, the developer. So what we're saying is indicative, it's not set in stone. Regarding the 10 kilometers, just want to clarify that that decision is made by LRIP, not us. We are consultant, but they are the one who chose the site based on their criteria, not us. But again, the reason why we recruited is to look at that and advise. If during our assessment, we come up to demonstrate that the 10 kilometers is what is the best for the country, we will advise and we'll give the rationale behind. But if not, we will also advise. But the initial choice has been made by the government, not us. Regarding the fund, I think Mr. Kike clarified that the fund is allocated to several programs, and one of them is why we're here today. So when you say how to access that fund, for the specific case of this program, it will be the one, those who will be selected for the 10 mini grid site that will have access to a subsidy. Again, the amount of the subsidy will be based on what you say you need. Because again, what is taught today is what the government is taking about is the minimum subsidy tender, meaning that for a set tariff, you will assess how much will be your development cost, how much will be your capex and your opex, and based on that, you have a financial model, and in that you estimate how much you need as a subsidy to make your expected return. And then when you bid, that's what you will be asking, saying, if I'm selected, I will be needing 1 million, 2 million, 5 million. So when now the government is doing the assessment of the bid, he will first review the technical proposal, because it doesn't make any sense giving money to someone, even if what he's proposing doesn't technically make sense. But now, for those who will pass the technical criteria, then the one who will come up with the minimum subsidy requirement will be the one who will be awarded the tender. Have I?
Thank you very much, Dr. Kojo. Just to comment on what Ndade Kojo referred to, the assignment that the Green Max is doing is to provide transaction advisory services to the LRI project. There was one consultancy firm that was engaged to do the feasibility study. So a lot of content regarding how we proceed from the feasibility studies that were accorded to the 10 mini-grids is what the current scope of our work is geared towards. There was a mention which I wish to complement to what you said, Dr. Kojo, regarding the mini-grids and the solar home systems that were referred to by the gentleman over there, I lost your name. The objective of the government of Lesotho is to increase energy access. So throughout the different programs that this can be availed, mini-grids are one aspect. In that DPS's opening remarks, he mentioned that the government of Lesotho developed the electrification master plan, which provides a direction in which this increasing access will take form. That includes grid extension, mini-grids deployment, as well as the solar home systems. So in light of what LRIP is going to do, we are going to tender out concession areas through which the identified private sector will find the appropriate means in which the energy can be accorded to a specific area in which they will be awarded the concession for. The issue of the 10 kilometers that was referred to, this is one of the criteria in which the electrification master plan links to regarding the areas in which the energy access will be followed. And in the EMP, it states that it is about 10 kilometers from the national grid. One of the issues to emphasize is that we know our terrain as the country. And the 10 kilometers that is being referred to, given the type of terrain that this country has, and also factor in the issue of affordability for those communities, as well as the cost in which the private sector will incur to provide that service, taking into consideration the time in which LEC will take to deliver the service to such areas, we were looking at this criteria based on not only the distance from the grid, but also the economic activity in the specific area in which this mini-grids under LRIP will be implementing. Then the selection criteria is available in the EMP and also from the feasibility studies that I had mentioned that before this exercise, the study was made. When we tender out this mini-grid site, we will also be sharing the feasibility studies for the sites, which will provide more insight as to what areas the respective bidders will be going towards. About the project financing, Kojo did mention, yes, indeed, the project is financed by 52.9 million, which goes to grid extension. And then in this particular component that we are sitting in here for, the financing is about 14.5 million US dollars, out of which the feasibility study, this transaction advisory services that we are getting, and also other studies related to environmental and social aspect will be from. So in this discussion, as we proceed, we will then be guided by the questions that will come from the floor as to which appropriate tendering scheme under P will be best suited for the private sector in here? Thank you.
Thanks, Megege. There are also, sorry. There are also some questions online. I think I'll read some of those out and address those, and then we can answer the questions in the room again. These questions are for you, Susan. So the first one is, what products can be supported by your digital platform? And what is Odyssey's business model? How do they get paid? And how much does this cost the subsidy program? I think you can answer those, and then I'll ask two more.
Sure, thanks very much. So I think the first question is probably referring to the types of devices that can you reread the first question again? Make sure I had it right.
What products can be supported by your digital platform?
Okay. So essentially, we support any form of distributed off-grid renewable energy project, from larger CNI installations, solar on SMEs, down to mini grids, certainly, solar home systems, cook stoves, and e-mobility. Larger systems into utility scale, not where we focus our efforts or energy. Odyssey has a number of different business streams, but our work with governments and the public sector is generally focused on supporting these electrification rollouts. So we essentially just charge against the level of time it takes us to support these programs. And that depends certainly on the scope and scale of what the needs are and what the agencies and officials determine is necessary for the configuration of their program.
Thanks, Susan. I'll ask two more. The next question is, I think, just open to the team. Whoever feels they can answer, please do. Are international companies able to bid independently, or is a local partner required? And please confirm the accessibility study verified that the roads can be traversed by double axle trucks carrying 10-meter poles. And if not, will that study be available? And if the roads are not accessible, will the program set aside funds for this or expect the developers to undertake roadworks? I think that one can be answered by LREAP.
The question about the roads accessibility, yes, Fiona, we confirm that the study will be shared. The feasibility study that was undertaken will be shared. We had mentioned the issue of cost reflectivity and the issue about the roads accessibility then may be factored in the tariff setting that will be determined by the bidder. Thank you. Colleagues from LRIP, there are questions that I'll be referring to you that day. That in our procurement unit may respond to the question about international bidding.
Thank you, Bonmelebondade. My name is John Neolokotla. I'm the procurement specialist from LRIP. For the bidding, either local or international, yes, the international can bid independently, but it gives more value when they partner with the local, because the evaluation criteria, there is a point where we consider the skills transfer, the key expert within the evaluation criteria. If you partnered with the local key expert, you gain more points than the international or independent bidder from abroad. Thank you.
Thank you, Ndade. I think I'll now open the floor again for 3 more questions. Are there any questions? I don't see any hands. Oh, the point was brought up that the willingness aspect was not answered. Okay, I think we will leave that and include it in the next.
I think when you talk about willingness to pay, you're talking about a qualitative assessment. And I mean, if you say you are a PhD student, it means you know how difficult it is to do a qualitative assessment. Is linked to, I mean, the set of data you have, the threshold of data you're analyzing to make that decision. Again, like we mentioned, the feasibility study has been done before we engage to review. So what we will do during our work is to assess how that willingness has been determined and see if it follows, I mean, research methodology. I mean, if it's accurate, if we can rely on the data we receive. Thank you.
Thank you. I see one hand.
Thank you very much. My name is Clement Dihol from Global Green Holdings. I don't know if my question is appropriate, but I will be corrected. Thank you very much. My question is, I think it regards more to the funding. For example, most of the companies here, we are coming from different companies. Others have got some 10 years experience, 5 years experience, and they are different in terms of the asset base, finance base, and all others. So most of the people here, almost 99% of them, they are concerned whether their company will get a stake. So my question is this funding open to all companies, or is just biased towards maybe those companies who are already massive in terms of asset security, finance security? Is it open? Like, I just want to be clear on that one so that we know whether we are all participants or. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ndade. Are there any more questions from the floor?
My name is Paul Mataha. I'm from Sustainable Energy Solutions. I would like to know, how is this project related to sustainable energy for all? What is the relationship between these two projects? And there was a project about 4 years ago of sustainable energy for all. How is this, and certain areas were selected by this area? Is there any relationship between the two projects?
I am Sawana Mafa. My question goes to Dr. Gojo. I've realized that from your presentation, you have talked about 10 villages, if I've seen very well, that are already studied in terms of visibility study. So I'm asking whether the project is mainly focused on those villages that are already studied, or is it still open to other villages who are willing to tap in from the opportunity that is offered by this project? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions. Regarding the funding, the muscle of the respective private sector in here, the tendering process will be open and competitive. Ntate Lekgotla did mention that the locals, as part of the evaluation criteria, may be given 1 point. Now coming from the female space, I always say there has to be 1 point allocated for female-led companies. Nonetheless, Ntate, it's open to everyone and competitive. So I think one of the things that one would urge yourselves in here is to do joint ventures with people who will upscale whatever it is that you have. There was a question relating to the Sustainable Energy for All project. The similarity between these two projects is that we are all under the Ministry of Natural Resources in the Department of Energy, and our mandate is similar. We intend to increase energy access. The other thing is both these projects stem from the Electrification Master Plan, which has identified the mini-grid site. And the SE for All project is currently implementing 10 mini-grids to this end. And LRIP, out of the sites that are identified under the EMP, we are continuing the national program towards increasing access. So the additional 10 that LRIP is implementing come from the EMP. The other question was referred to Dr. Kojo. So over to Dr. Kojo. Oh.
Thank you, KK. I think
just to add on what the project coordinators said, the other issue, if you look at, I think what this World Bank funded project will actually also be doing is they are also trying to test a different model, a triple P model. The SE for All project tried, it tried this. It was not what this project is actually trying to do. So indeed, the projects that are being implemented are all what are actually contained in the EMP. These are the sites that have been identified to be viable projects for mini-grid establishment. They're all sites which were identified as viable projects that could actually be provided with or which could actually facilitate establishment of mini-grids in them for people to actually have access to electricity. So, but the financial models were slightly different. What this project is trying to do is that, well, we have seen what the SE for All project did. It has actually, we are still learning to say, well, yes, it's going, but I think a triple P model would actually offer better results. And this is what basically is actually doing. So all projects, these are projects that are within the MP identified as a suitable size for mini-grids, but we are just trying to try different financial models, because remember, if you are to bring the private sector is in for making some profit, the private man will invest and then make require return on investment. So, but the areas that we are looking at are hard to, these are areas where people do not have money and all that, but they need services. They need services. They are part of us. They need services. So we are trying to come up with, how can we, the easier way would actually be say, let's call them from where they are and then call, but that's not what we want. We want them to remain where they are, but have access to, electricity, because that the type of power that everybody needs. So that's basically, I think that I just wanted to clarify that so that at least we understand. Yes. Ndate Kojo, you're on the floor. I think you were just about to respond to some of the questions.
Thank you, Director. I think the question of the gentleman is, we mentioned 10 mini-grid sites. If it's too late to add an additional, I don't think it's too late. I don't think you can add one at this point, because like we mentioned, feasibility study has been conducted already on the 10 mini-grid sites. So if you want to add an additional, on which basis? Because bidders will not have any information on the site. That increase the uncertainty, and finance doesn't like uncertainty. More uncertainty you have, then the return is high. And I don't think that's where we want to go. So I think for now, we will stick into the 10 sites we have done. I mean, feasibility studies have been done for. Thank you.
Thank you, Ndate Kojo. I'll take some more questions from the online platform. And I think these are all mainly for LREAP again. The first one is the bid only for aspiring service providers for the core services for clean energy provision, or are ancillary services included, or should be part of a turnkey solution by the bidder? The next question is, how much is the tariff with the government at the moment? And the last question is, the bid is based on the minimum subsidy. That is dependent on the tariff. How do we ensure the balance between the subsidies and the tariffs such that we don't overload the rural communities knowing their economic background? Can we set the mini grid tariff? Thank you.
Fiona, I think I'm done taking the floor. Ndate Kukume, colleagues, can you provide answers to the questions that are asked online?
Okay, Fiona, apologies, but can you repeat the question on the 10 key issue?
No problem. Let me just, okay. Is the bid only for aspiring service providers for the core services for clean energy provision, or ancillary services included, or should be part of turnkey solution by the bidder?
Oh, yes. What we are looking for is the 10 key solutions. As the project, we are looking for providing the 10 key solution would be on the generation side. There would be no ancillary solutions that we provide, but what we are looking at is the possibility to own the distribution infrastructure. And the second question about the tariff, the issue of the tariff is a very difficult and a very debatable issue. So when we talk about the minimum subsidy tender, it means one would set and apply for a certain tariff. But what is important is for us to make sure that, by us, I mean all parties, being the public and the private, we should make sure that the price of electricity is affordable to the customers and that it is profitable for the private sector. And what makes this issue difficult is it is generally seen as an expensive tariff. The price of electricity, people will tell you that 5 maloti or 6 maloti or 7 maloti per kilowatt hour is expensive. But in my opinion, that's not how we should look at it. We should rather tie the price to the consumption. It is expected that the rural communities are low consuming than the urban customers, if I may call them that. But at the end of the day, if you look at the bill towards electricity for rural communities, it is obviously going to be very low despite the price of electricity for the communities. So the approach that we are looking at is really, when we say minimum subsidy tender, the private sector would propose the subsidy that would be required given a certain tariff. Thank you very much. I hope I have responded well to the questions.
Thank you very much. Are there more questions from the floor? Okay, let me.
Yeah, thanks. It is just an information. There are villages for the past 5 years who self-financed, got engaged in electrifying their village, and they got stuck on the way. Has the study came across that activity? If they haven't, please note it, that it be taken on board. And the Rural Electrification Unit, the former Rural Electrification Unit, did try to assist those villages. Fortunately, I was involved. And then the whole thing came to a state of relapse. I request it be noted, and the study may see how they take that particular event on board. Thanks. Yeah. Oh, okay. There are villages. I can mention them. It's at Lukokwane. When you go up the tower, where Vodacom Tower is, that village is 5 kilometers from there. Going to Kokwane, right up at the church, you turn left. It's a new road that has been built. But when they started this project, they managed to install LEC 8 poles and a transformer. And they wanted to extend down deep to their village. They ran out of funds. And this has been going for the past 5-6 years. Now, what I put to us is that the study or the project may see how they enhance that village, assist them so that they can benefit from RWE AP. Am I clear? Okay.
According to electricity master plan, basically the country is divided into two. There are areas which are basically viewed as areas where electricity provision can actually be done through grid extension. And these are areas, basically, if you look at the Lesotho, these are areas basically in the foothills up to, some of them are where you have towns. That is where we already have electricity infrastructure available there. That's the other areas are areas which are, even if you were to trim, for them, for you to actually extend grid to those areas, you'd actually have to have, you have to put, invest a lot of money. But what we are basically saying is, for those areas which are very far away from the electricity infrastructure, the transmission lines and the like, which are very, very far away from, but have people, services, have people, villages and all that. Now, what we are basically saying is that those areas are areas which will actually be assisted through establishment of mini grids. And then within, even in the mini grids, we are just talking about it. But when you look at, there are those areas which those of us who are Lesotho and know what Lesotho looks like, you find that there's a village. It's a village, but if you go there, there are 2 households or 5 households, These are areas, basically, when would actually be served through standalone systems. But these are areas who will actually be served through standalone systems. So the way we see electrification program, progressing in Lesotho is through grid extension in those areas where grid infrastructure exists. But in those areas that are very far away from the grid, we see having mini grids established. But we also foresee for those, even though in those areas that are very far away from the grid, based on the population, we see that mini grids will not be a solution in those areas, but would actually have to have standalone systems. This is how we envisage electricity provision in this country. So the area that we are talking about, if it's here in the what? In Lokokwane, those are areas which, if money was there, would actually have to be served by grid extension, because infrastructure is already there. It's already there. Why would you want to go and spend, infrastructure is already there, but mini grid establishment are for areas which basically, even if because ultimately what we want is, we want people to have access to electricity. But the type of electricity that we can actually, it will not be through grid, because you can imagine, if you look at some of, in some of the areas, if you were to, extend, a line, that is 3 kV line, just to go and serve a village, you just use so much money. So these are areas that have been earmarked for mini grids. I think this is what actually has to be very clear. So if an area happens to be in an area that, that's what we should actually have. The picture that we should actually have. The country is basically divided into 2: grid extension, and then there are areas which are very far away from a grid, and for those areas to actually have access to electricity, the strategy that we are going to use is to establish mini grids. But even for those areas that are very far away from the grid, there are now areas which will not qualify for mini grid. Definitely, they will not qualify for mini grid. You will not establish a mini grid for 2 households or 10 households. Now, these are areas that now where would actually be considered under solar home standalone systems. I think I just wanted to make that clear, so that at least people are, you should actually have that vision in your head that, well, this is the strategy that the government is actually. Now, the question would actually be, what are we doing as government to now facilitate the issue of grid extension? Are we only leaving it to LEC? I can tell you that currently we are also going to engage World Bank to actually assist us to now, even in the grid, to cluster these villages, to cluster them so that private developers can actually inject their money. But now we'll also have to, for them we'll now have to go back to LEWA so that LEWA can actually have now a tariff that would actually be saying, I am a private developer or a distributor. I want to buy electricity from LEC, but that will actually be a bulk tariff or a wholesale tariff. That has to be introduced. So that at the end of the day, what will actually happen? We'll still be doing grid extension. Now we'll have a number of clusters established within the area which was actually earmarked for grid extension. But now we want to have not only LEC, because if we are to if we are to trust or just depend on LEC, will take some edges, to have people connected. Now we want to, now we are now in a discussion where we want to introduce other players within the service territory. I think that's, I just wanted to make that clear so that at least people can actually have that in their head, that, in their mind, that this is the vision that we are having. I always ask my colleagues at work that, it would actually be nice for now if we have actually now have One Power has a number of concessions or mini grids that is actually under sustainable energy for all. And then the mini grids are not just covering one village. Some of the mini grids are, and Adumabe will actually testify to this, a number of villages. And then, so that if you could actually have a map that actually shows that how the area that has been covered by One Power. Now we are now having these projects from World Bank. These are not only just villages, it's a cluster. Villages have been clustered, and then, so that at the end of the day, we'll actually see that if we can have that, put here, we can actually see that, okay, there are quite a number of villages that have already been served. And then World Bank is coming up with, quite a good cluster of villages. What is actually left? I think you will actually see that it will actually be, there could be still more areas which would actually be which would actually qualify for mini grid development. But you will actually see that quite a number of villages, especially in the mountains, have actually been covered. We are now starting to focus more, because this project, the mini grids program is basically not focusing on the, on the lowlands. No, it's basically more on the mountains. And these are areas where we basically said, even though we are now at 51% or so household connection, but in the mountains it's more like 10%. So this is where we focus. We are now basically saying, what is it that we can actually do as government to actually make sure that those people in the rural areas, they are also Basotho, they are part of us. They are entitled, they have the right to have, quality, energy, and then the quality energy in terms of, it's electricity. So what is it that we can actually do for them to actually have electricity? We have basically, the government has taken, which I think, this is what I think is very, very important, that the fact that we now have now agreed to divide the country into these two, so there will be very clear strategies, which are strategies focused to the rural folks and also the urban folks, which are basically, enjoying, they are now 80% or 70% of the 51% that we talk about is basically in the lowlands and the foothills and also the towns. I think I just wanted to make that clear so that at least people can actually have that, so that they can actually know what is it that we are, what is it that we are having in our mind, or what is the vision that we are actually having. I just wanted to make that. I think I've been very long. I'm not a good speaker, I know, but I wanted to.
Thank you very much, Ndate Director. I think I'll read out the last online questions and then we can wrap up and have concluding remarks. We will, however, display contact details and any other questions can be sent by email. We will also be sending out the slides and the video recording of today's meeting to everyone that was registered online and in person. The first question is, recognizing that international companies often secure the majority of bids for large-scale projects, thereby limiting opportunities for local burgeoning businesses, how will LREAP ensure that local companies receive due consideration and preference in the forthcoming project to bolster our economy? And the last question is, what is the track record of implementation under the master plan? Has implementation been on track to deliver grid extension electrification in line with the projections? Is the performance under the EMP tracked and reported? If a site which was supposed to be electrified in a certain number of years under the EMP and it doesn't happen after that said number of years, could it be released for mini grid electrification? Or are those communities doomed to keep waiting for as long as it takes for the grid to come, even if it's decades? I think LREAP can answer those questions. I don't know who would like to answer on behalf of LREAP.
The question regarding the international and local bidding, I think, was responded to, in which, among others, this forum that we are holding today is really to inform our local private sector to venture into this mini-grid space. Indeed, the large international companies are the ones who seem to have more muscle. Hence, we are proposing that the private sector should form partnerships and joint ventures with the already existing private sector in the international space, who have the expertise and the finance and the experience regarding this niche market of the mini-grid space. The question that Matt referred to regarding the EMP tracking, I think the department will respond to that, but the monitoring of these national programs are done through the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning. And in the Department of Energy, there is an M&E framework which monitors the respective programs that the ministry is implementing. The director in your M&E team.
Thank you very much. Somehow I knew that that question would actually be coming from that debate. I don't know how, but I knew that it would actually be coming from him. Yes, we have not actually done very well in terms of actually implementing EMP. This is why now we are now trying to say, this is now where we are saying EMP in the grid extension was actually saying this would actually be government, this would be actually be LEC participating. The reason why we are basically saying now, let's just explore having or explore private sector participation by actually creating some clusters, which would actually be buying power from LEC at the wholesale price. We are basically trying to say, we have actually acknowledged that we have not done very well. That's why we are basically now trying to explore those strategies. I think that's basically what I can say. We have not actually done very well in terms of following the master plan. We have not done very well. This is basically, remember, government, what we have actually now observed is government injection in terms of finance on the rural electrification program. You know, when the Lesotho, this electricity master plan was actually being developed, we're basically envisaging 150 million maloti coming from government. But what we have actually recently seen is going down. It's going down. I think as we speak now, we only allocated 50 million. What can you do in 50 million? We basically allocated 50 million to actually do rural electrification, to extend grid to the rural areas. What can you do with 50 million? So that's why now we're basically saying, instead of now depending on government, let's now explore ways of actually, trying to bring private sector into the grid extension space. How can we do that? Just by saying, let's cluster these area villages which were within and then try to see if we can actually have distributors buying power from LEC at wholesale price and that providing power to them. Then that's as brief as I can. Thank you. That PS is here to,
like you said, that you want to, how can I put it? But you take a long route, you know? You want to pass a point, but you take a long route. Actually, in short, what has happened as a limiting factor towards implementing EMP has been financial resource allocation. Like he said, according to the plan, there was supposed to be 150 million maloti allocated per year. But that has not been the case, as he had said. Even this year, the allocation was just 50 million maloti. So you can just imagine that in this kind of financial allocation or provision from government, it would take time to achieve the set allocation, the set coverage. But we cannot blame, there's no one to blame in this case, because the performance of the economic performance of the country had not been so good, so much that even revenue collections had drastically declined. So this is the position. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ndate PS. I think that brings us to the end of the question and answer session. I'll now hand over to Dr. Kojo to speak about timelines, feedback mechanisms, and next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. I think the timeline will be from this on, we will be expecting your feedback and input, because two main activity will be ongoing, will happen. The first one is for us to reassess the feasibility studies, including going to the site to consolidate all the information so that when developers bid, they bid with more accurate data. But us doing it will not be enough. We also expect your feedback, your input. And based on that, we will explore the different PPP, the model that exists, and recommend to the government the most suitable for and the country and the developers, so that we can attract you into the country, because ultimately that's our goal. And then propose a bidding framework to them. That's, and based, with all this information, then the government will move forward, ALRIP will move forward with the bidding process. So that will be the next steps in the timeline. And when I say our mission or our assignment will be completed by the first month of January. So from that period, it will be the ALRIP taking over and setting the timeline for the bidding process. Now, we will leave at the end of the presentation 3 email addresses where you guys can contact us and provide us with feedback and inputs. So it will be, okay. These are the 3 emails. So one is for Green Marks, the second one in ENSUS, and the third one for ALRIP. Because again, we said we're consultant, but we're working with ALRIP as a team because we have a common objective of delivering this program. So you can contact any of us for your input and your feedback. It's quite critical, because we don't want to get to the point that the bidding package is issued and then you feel like it doesn't reflect what you think. So we need your feedback at this point.
You said you will share the presentation and then videos and so on and so forth. But these feasibility studies that have been done, is that public knowledge? Can we, or public information, can we get access to that now already, or should we now have to wait for January next year?
I believe, probably that will be ALRIP to answer that question. But I believe since we will be assessing them, don't you think it will be better to wait until you have the fine-tuned package instead of having it right now? But again, ultimately, it will be up to ALRIP to make that decision.
Thank you. Yes, the feasibility studies will be accessible. I think, Dr. Kojo, the sooner the better, so that they will be prepared by the time that the tenders are being issued. Thank you. So they will be shared. Thank you.
Okay, that said, I think I'll hand it over to KK for the closing remarks.
Thank you. The closing remarks will be done by my principals here. But thank you. Well, nonetheless, thank you for your presence, and your feedback, like Dr. Kojo did mention, is highly appreciated. The objective is to leave no Mosotho behind in as far as providing the service to Basotho and saving the energy space. As a woman, we are achieving SDG 7 through SDG 5. So this partnership will assist us in achieving the SDG 17 of partnership and collaboration. That said, I will hand over to my principals to do the closing remarks. Thank you. Pierce.
Thank you, Madam. But I think we have really touched on the salient points in terms of access to electricity. I think it is also important to make you aware that it is the strategy of the Ministry of Government also to try to mitigate or adapt from effects of climate change. That's why we are having that slogan, renewable energy, renewable energy. I think that's basically the route that the government is taking. Otherwise, thank you very much for your participation and engagement. I think we keep on learning new things. Even we keep on learning from your interjections, and I think also we realized that the invitation had been extended heavily, so that even in this room, we couldn't even fit in this room. What else? Thank you very much.
Lunch is served. Thank you very much, Bombelo Ntate. Ntate PSO Sakwezi.
Please note that there are lunch vouchers. Please don't leave your seats yet. The lunch vouchers are being handed out to each person.